My name is Callista. I'm 34, an interior designer, and the proud owner of a home I restored with my own two hands. I haven't spoken to my family in 9 years, not since they disowned me for not living the life they demanded. So when my phone rang last April and my mother's voice, syrupy, sweet, and fake as ever, poured through the speaker, I knew something was coming. But I didn't expect this. She wanted to host my brother's wedding. At my house. The house I built without them. The house they never once congratulated me on. The house they only cared about now that they needed it. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I didn't slam the phone down. What I did was make a plan. For most of my life, I didn't realize I was invisible. Not in the literal sense. My parents saw me. They just didn't look. They saw the grades, the chores completed, the polished smile at dinner parties. But they never saw me. Trenton, on the other hand, was impossible to miss. 3 years younger, reckless, entitled, golden. He failed upward. Every small improvement, every B- on a report card, every half-hearted apology was met with praise and reward. When I came home with perfect grades, it was met with silence. "That's what we expect from you," my father said, without ever looking up from his paper. It took me years to realize how damaging that sentence really was. I learned early that effort wasn't enough, that excellence didn't earn affection, that being useful was the only acceptable form of being. So I worked harder. I turned an abandoned sunroom into a reading nook. My mother's book club adored it. She never mentioned I built it. My father complained about the paint smell. I started sketching renovations in my notebooks during class, reading interior design blogs when no one was watching. I stopped waiting for their approval and started building something that felt like mine. When college came, I chose design. They chose to undermine it. My father called it a phase. My mother suggested I do it on the side. They pushed for business school. I compromised. Double major, state university, multiple jobs. Meanwhile, Trenton coasted through a fully funded education, switching majors when bored, skipping internships, floating. He was a late bloomer. I was just difficult. But I didn't give in. I built a portfolio with real clients and real results. I graduated with offers from top firms. And when I finally launched my own business, I thought maybe they'd be proud. So I invited them to dinner. We sat at their favorite steakhouse. My mother talked about an upcoming fundraiser. My father ordered his usual. Trenton didn't speak at all. I waited until dessert. "I've opened my own firm," I said. My father set down his fork. "That's a mistake." That was his reaction. Not curiosity, not interest, just rejection. Then came the offer. A job at one of his friend's companies, managing commercial properties. He'd already told the guy I'd accept. I told him no, and that's when it happened. He said if I wouldn't take the job, I was on my own. No support, no name, no family. My mother said nothing. Trenton looked away. I placed my keys to their house on the table and left. That night, I cried in Zoe's apartment, not because they cut me off, but because somewhere deep down, I still thought I mattered to them. By sunrise, that illusion was gone. I didn't just lose my family that night. I lost the version of myself who still needed them. When I walked away from my family at 25, I walked straight into the unknown. I had no safety net, no investors, no favors. Just a rented 300-square-foot office, a dented laptop, and 3 clients willing to take a chance on me. The first year was brutal. 2 of those clients dropped out within a month. Mysterious last-minute cancellations that smelled suspiciously like my father's influence. I never confirmed it, but I didn't need to. His version of discipline was always clean, private, deniable. So I worked with what I had. I redesigned a friend's coffee shop for free just to prove what I could do. I bartered design services for printer ink. I slept on the floor of my office for 3 months to save on rent. But I didn't stop. Every penny I made went back into the business. I wore the same blazer to every pitch meeting and made it look intentional. When I didn't have access, I created my own lane. Slowly, the tide turned. A restaurant owner I'd helped went viral after a food blogger featured his space. And with it, my design. New leads followed. A client's wealthy aunt hired me to restore her historic condo, and she became the kind of person who talks about you at charity galas. In 2 years, I went from sleeping on a futon to signing a lease on a full studio space with exposed brick and 14-foot ceilings. My firm had a name now: Callista Design and Restoration. My waiting list stretched into next quarter. That was when I started dreaming about a home, not just any house, but a space that would reflect everything I'd built from scratch. At 30, I found it. An abandoned 1780s colonial buried under ivy on 3 acres in Connecticut. Most people saw rot, rodents, and years of disrepair. I saw potential. I emptied my savings and bought it outright. The renovation wasn't glamorous. I showered at the gym, lived in 2 rooms while working on the others, learned plumbing from YouTube and troubleshooting from trial and error. When things broke, I fixed them. When something was too far gone, I rebuilt it better. I didn't hire influencers. I documented the process on my firm's blog, showing every raw, unvarnished inch of it. People responded to the honesty and to the vision. By the 3rd year, my home was more than livable. It was a masterpiece. The kitchen had modern functionality wrapped in colonial warmth. I turned the barn into a workspace, my ceilings exposed, the beams original. I designed every detail, down to the stone path from the garden to the fire pit. That house was more than shelter. It was proof that I could build beauty out of abandonment. That legacy doesn't come from lineage. It's carved from choice. In that same time, something else took root. A family I didn't inherit, but created. Zoe, my anchor, had moved nearby with her wife and 2 kids. Marcos and David, the couple who owned the best restaurant in town, invited me to every holiday dinner and treated me like blood. Kelly, a brilliant landscape architect, helped me turn the yard into a dream and ended up becoming one of my closest friends. These people never asked me to prove my worth. They just showed up, again and again, quietly, consistently, without keeping score. They remembered my birthday. They celebrated my magazine features. They helped me haul lumber when a delivery guy bailed. One night, we were sitting around the fire pit, wine glasses in hand, and Zoe looked at me and said, "I hope you know this is home now. We're your people." And I did know, not because she said it, but because every part of me finally felt seen. It started with a number I hadn't seen in almost a decade, but one I recognized instantly. The screen lit up with my mother's name. My hand hovered, not out of emotion, but calculation. I hadn't heard her voice since the night they disowned me. And now, after 9 years of silence, she was calling me at 2:12 on a Tuesday afternoon. I answered with the same voice I used with clients who tried to talk down my rates. "Hello? Callista, darling," she sang out, as if we'd spoken last week. "It's Mom." Of course it was. And I already knew this wasn't a reconciliation. That much was clear from her tone, too cheerful, too rehearsed. "How have you been?" she asked breezily. "I'm well," I said evenly. "This is unexpected." "Well, families should stay connected, shouldn't they?" She laughed. "Anyway, we have some exciting news. Your brother Trenton is getting married." I waited. "And," she continued, "there's been a bit of a hiccup with the venue. The country club suffered a small fire in their event hall. Just smoke damage, nothing serious. But they had to cancel all events for the summer." "Of course." "And then," she added, almost triumphant, "I remembered that beautiful article in Architectural Digest about your home. Such a creative space, really. Those gardens. That barn. Callista, your house would be perfect for the wedding." There it was. Not a hello, not an apology, not a hint of remorse for nearly a decade of absence. Just a request. "You want to host Trenton's wedding at my home?" I clarified. "Just a small celebration. 200 people, maybe less," she said. "Ceremony in the garden, cocktails on the patio, dinner in a tent on the lawn. Caroline's mother absolutely adores your aesthetic." I didn't respond. She pressed. "It would be a lovely chance to let bygones be bygones. Water under the bridge, don't you think?" No, I didn't. "I'll need time to think about it," I said flatly. "Well, do think quickly," she chirped. "Invitations should have gone out already. Your father will call tomorrow to discuss logistics." The line went dead. I stared at the screen. Then I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because the audacity was breathtaking. True to her word, the next day, my father called. He didn't bother with small talk. "Your mother tells me you're considering hosting the wedding." "I haven't agreed to anything." "Well, we need to begin preparations immediately. We'll have our event planner contact you." I didn't flinch. "This is a significant imposition," I said. "And given our history—" "History is irrelevant," he snapped. "This is about family. Trenton needs this. The Westfields are important connections." There it was again. Trenton's needs. My boundaries. Irrelevant. "My home is also my business," I said calmly. "I'm not comfortable with 200 strangers occupying it, especially after 9 years of silence." He didn't even try to pretend. "This isn't about your comfort, Callista. It's about doing what's right for the family. I expected more maturity from you." The call ended with him demanding an answer within 24 hours. Then Trenton called. "Hey, sis," he said, like we hadn't skipped a decade. "Long time." "Yeah," I said, 9 years. "Life gets busy," he mumbled. "Anyway, Caroline is really stressed. She saw your house in the magazine and literally cried. Said it's her dream venue. And honestly, it would mean a lot to have my only sister involved." I almost bought it. Until he added, "Caroline's parents will cover all costs. Even pay you a site fee, though, family discount and all." I said nothing. He went on, talking about logistics, where the catering trucks would park, how guests could use my master suite to get dressed, as if this was a done deal, as if I was just the concierge. "Trent," I said, "this is not just a venue, it's my home." He chuckled. "Come on, they're not strangers. These are family friends. Mom's club, dad's associates, people who matter." And I didn't. By the end of that day, I had 7 more calls. 2 from my mother, 1 from the planner I'd never agreed to, a voicemail from Carolyn, who I had never met, and 3 from family members who hadn't so much as sent a Christmas card in years. Aunt Susan told me, "Family comes together in times like these." My cousin Michael texted, "Don't punish Trenton for Dad's mistakes." Then I saw the post, a professionally edited photo of my house, taken from my website, captioned, "Can't wait to celebrate our big day at this dream venue, 63 days until forever begins. #Trick and Caroline, #Mitchell wedding." They had already announced it, used my address, without permission. I received a text from my cousin Jennifer, always the family gossip. "FYI, they already sent out the invitations last week with your address. Thought you'd say yes once RSVPs started rolling in." That same afternoon, I got a visit from Caroline's mother at the local coffee shop. She greeted me like a daughter-in-law. When I said I hadn't agreed to host anything, her smile barely cracked. "I'm sure you and Trenton will sort it out. Family always comes through." I went home and found an anonymous complaint had been filed against my business, alleging code violations. The inspector found nothing. But I got the message, loud and clear: "Say yes or we'll make you pay." That night, I opened my laptop and started drafting. Not a contract, a line in the sand. I sent the email just after 11 p.m. It was addressed to my parents, Trenton, Caroline, and the wedding planner, because apparently one had already been hired. It was concise, formal, and unmistakably final. After careful consideration, I must decline the request to host Trenton and Caroline's wedding at my home. While I wish them well in their marriage, my property is not available as a venue. Please inform all guests and vendors immediately. Continued use of my address or likeness constitutes unauthorized use and trespassing. Zoe reviewed it for me. She tightened the tone, professional, but immovable. The response was almost instant. My father called within the hour. His voice was tight, controlled in a way I recognized, his version of fury wrapped in civility. "This is absolutely unacceptable," he said. "After everything we've done for you." "You disowned me," I said. 9 years ago, do you remember?" He deflected like he always had. "Your brother needs this. The Westfields are important." "Then find another venue," I said flatly. "You're being ungrateful and difficult," he snapped. "This is family. You told me not to use the family name, to lose your number, to disappear." That was then. This is about now. No, this is about convenience. It always was. He hung up. The text messages started not long after. From my mother. How could you humiliate us like this? Your brother is devastated. I didn't raise you to be this cruel. From Trenton. You're ruining the most important day of my life. What if we cut the guest list to 100? We'll keep people out of the house. Please, Callista, don't do this. And then from Carolyn, a shaky, tear-soaked voice message. She said she had always hoped to build a relationship with me, that she admired me, that she didn't understand why I was doing this. I deleted it. By evening, the outer circle was activated. Aunt Patricia called to explain how I was tearing the family apart. Uncle James warned this stress could affect my father's heart. Cousins who hadn't acknowledged my existence in years suddenly wanted to mediate. Then came the retaliation. 2 formal complaints were filed anonymously with my town. One for supposed historic code violations, one for improper commercial use of my property. Both were baseless, but disruptive, time-consuming, strategic. Then came the digital front. Newly created accounts began leaving 1-star reviews on my firm's business listings. Forums I participated in saw sudden comments questioning my professionalism. One of my clients called to say someone was asking questions, veiled inquiries about my licensing, my billing practices. I wasn't rattled, I was resolved. Then I saw the post. A watercolor rendering of my home, featured on the wedding invitations, captioned, "Can't wait to celebrate our big day at this dream venue." My address, my house. Without my consent, I contacted my attorney. We issued cease and desist letters to everyone involved, my family, the Westfields, the planner. We also filed legal notice with the local police and vendors. Everything was documented. Then I called a private security company, former military, discreet, efficient. We built a full protection plan. 4 guards stationed at each entry point, motion-triggered surveillance, legal notices posted at the perimeter, incident logs for every attempt to enter. Meanwhile, I booked a 4-day retreat in Nantucket. Prepaid, non-refundable, location private. I changed the locks, updated my security codes, had my mail held, asked neighbors to report anything suspicious. Then came the smoking gun. An email forwarded by mistake from Caroline's mother. It was intended for the wedding planner. The subject line read, "If Callista resists." It laid out strategies, bringing in a locksmith, distracting me with a brunch invitation, even a list of family friends willing to lie and say I'd agreed to host. They weren't hoping I'd say yes. They were preparing to take it. The morning of June 24th, I sat on the balcony of my resort suite, coffee in hand, wrapped in ocean air and silence. At 9:37 a.m., my phone buzzed, motion detected. I opened the camera app and watched, live, as the first van rolled up. Elite catering. 2 SUVs followed. Then my parents' car, Trenton's Tesla, Caroline's mother's white Range Rover. My guards were already in place. They never even opened the gate. I watched my father arguing, red-faced and gesturing wildly. Caroline crying. Trenton pacing in circles. The wedding planner holding a clipboard, visibly flustered. Guests showing up in full dress. Vendors confused and irritated. At 10:45, the police arrived. We had briefed them days in advance. The officers reviewed the paperwork on file, spoke calmly to my family, then stepped aside. No event, no access. By mid-afternoon, reality began to set in. People started leaving. Vendors packed up. The planner stood alone at her car for almost 10 minutes, talking into her phone with her other hand shaking. At 5:30, the last vehicle pulled away. One of my guards texted, "All clear, your father said. This isn't over." We documented everything. I closed the app and set down my phone. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt still. And in that stillness, something settled in me, like concrete poured and hardened at last. This wasn't about revenge. It was about sovereignty. 3 days after the wedding that never happened, I returned home. The house was exactly as I'd left it. Clean, silent, mine. A quiet, elegant refusal carved in wood and stone. The garden was untouched, the barn locked, the camera logs full of attempts and denial. Waiting in my mailbox were 3 envelopes. One from my mother, written in clipped cursive. "You've destroyed your brother's happiness out of spite. You're cold. You're toxic. This family is better off without you." One from Trenton. "I don't understand what happened to us. We used to be close. Did you hate me all along?" And one from Caroline. "I'm sorry. I should have reached out directly. Everyone kept saying you'd come around eventually. I didn't know. I didn't see." I read them once and never again. They went into a drawer I no longer open. Weeks passed. No lawsuits, no apologies. Just a void, thick with stories I wasn't part of. I didn't respond. I didn't correct the rumors. I let silence do what words never could, draw a final line. Then came fall, and with it, Thanksgiving. That year, I hosted 20 people at my house. Zoe and her family, Kelly and her new girlfriend, Marcos and David and their extended circle, 2 clients who had become friends, my neighbors, my people. We sat under warm lighting, passing wine and stories across the table, set in the garden they once tried to claim. There was laughter, soft music, the clinking of real silverware, and for the first time, I felt it. Not performance, not duty, but connection. No manipulation, no pretense, just presence. I looked around and realized something simple but profound. They didn't love me because of what I built. They loved me while I built it. Family isn't who shares your name. It's who shows up, and I had found mine. My name is Celine Ward. I come from a place where daughters are meant to be quiet, polite, and grateful, even when everything inside them is breaking. I spent most of my life being the invisible one, the one who made room so others could shine. And for a long time, I told myself that was love. 3 days before I was supposed to board a flight to Paris for a scholarship interview that could change my life, I discovered my passport was missing. Not lost, missing. Ripped from the secure folder where I'd kept it for months, tucked between my visa paperwork and my acceptance letter. I searched every drawer, every pocket, every space where something might have slipped. Nothing. Until I looked up and saw her standing there. Calla, my younger sister, my parents' pride. The same girl who once accidentally spilled bleach on my prom dress, who claimed she never saw my college acceptance letter until it was too late to reply. "You really should be more careful with your things," she said, smiling like always. That sweet, practiced smile that had fooled everyone for years. Everyone but me. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just nodded and told her I'd double-check the kitchen. Then I went to my room and opened the hollowed-out Bible I'd hidden since January. My backup passport lay inside, untouched. My heart pounded steady as I texted Marcus. Plan Omega is a go. They thought they could stop me one last time. They were wrong. I was 9 when I first realized that love in my house had a sharp edge. Calla was 7, and she'd just been named Star of the Week in her 2nd grade class. Mom printed banners. Dad bought cupcakes. I had a regional science fair ribbon clutched in my hand, but no one noticed. They were too busy setting up a surprise party for her at the church fellowship hall. That's how it always was. Calla shined, and I became the backdrop. For years, I convinced myself I was overreacting, that maybe I was just sensitive. But as I grew older, the accidents stopped looking like accidents. The time my science fair project fell off the garage shelf the night before regionals. The college prep seminar I missed because my alarm never went off. A clock I later found tucked into the back of Calla's closet. The college acceptance letter from a university I'd dared to dream about. Gone. My parents told me it must have gotten lost in the mail. It showed up a month after the deadline, opened and creased. And every time, Calla would play the innocent. "You poor thing," she'd say. "You really have to stay organized, Celine." My parents? They called me dramatic, forgetful, prone to losing things. Dad would sigh into his morning coffee, muttering about how I needed to grow thicker skin. Mom preferred silence, unless it was to marvel at Calla's latest debate win or violin recital. So I adapted. Quietly, strategically. I started keeping copies of everything. Digital backups, hidden folders, screenshots of every important email. I wrote everything down, documented every coincidence. I became my own archivist, recording the slow erosion of trust, one sabotage at a time. and I started preparing for the day I'd leave. The scholarship to Paris had been a lifeline, a full 18-month program through the European Youth Policy Institute. I applied in secret, wrote my essay in the back room at the library, and submitted it on a prepaid SIM card so my parents couldn't trace the data. When I got the acceptance letter, I didn't tell anyone. Not right away. I just stared at the screen, my hand over my mouth, and thought, they're going to try to take this from me too. So I planned. Every detail. A backup passport hidden in a hollowed-out Bible I'd bought for $4 at a thrift store. A duffel packed with essentials, ready under my bed. Babysitting money saved for years, stashed under a loose floorboard. Every item chosen for necessity, not sentiment. No photos, no heirlooms, just what I needed to survive. I played along at home, smiled at dinner, laughed at Calla's rehearsed stories. Let them think I was soft, still obedient, still theirs. But I wasn't. I was building an exit. When I told them about the Paris program 2 weeks before my flight, I watched the discomfort ripple across their faces. Mom pressed her lips into a thin line. Dad adjusted his tie like someone had accused him of a crime. Calla smiled, but her eyes flared, a flicker of panic she tried to hide. Well, Mom said finally, that's ambitious. Dad added, seems a bit rushed, don't you think? And Calla? She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Just be careful, Celine. Not everything works out the way you hope. That night, I added a second copy of my flight itinerary to my emergency folder. Just in case. Because I'd seen this before. They didn't destroy things all at once. They chipped away slowly, discrediting, undermining, making sure I'd question myself before I ever questioned them. But this time, I wasn't going to give them the chance. I woke at 2 a.m., not to an alarm, but to instinct. My body had learned the rhythm of escape after months of rehearsals. Every movement was precise, like choreography for survival. The house groaned softly, its old bones settling. Dad's snoring echoed from the master bedroom. I sat up in bed, heart thudding steady, and reached for the Bible on my shelf. The hollowed pages held my escape. The backup passport, untouched and waiting. I pressed the cover to my chest, breathing in the moment. This was it. No more waiting for permission to live. My duffel was already packed, each item weighed, folded, and positioned like evidence in a courtroom. No room for anything that wasn't absolutely essential. I left behind the framed certificates in the laundry room, the soccer medals buried in the attic, and every photograph that proved nothing. Beneath the floorboard, I retrieved the envelope of cash. $2,340, earned one babysitting shift at a time. I slid it into the side pocket of my bag and glanced around my room one last time. This wasn't a goodbye. It was an escape from a place that never made space for me. I scribbled a note and placed it on my pillow. I know what you did. I've always known. That was all. The full truth compressed into 8 words. Sliding open the window, I hoisted the duffel down first. It landed with a soft thud in Mom's hydrangeas. A fitting farewell. I dropped to the ground and moved through the yard like smoke. Across the street, headlights stayed off as Marcus leaned against his sister's borrowed Honda. His shoulders straightened when he saw me. You sure about this? He whispered as he opened the trunk. They took the original, I said, holding up the second passport. Just like we thought they would. His jaw clenched. I hoped we were wrong. They've had years of practice, I said, handing him the folder with my documents. He nodded and placed it gently in the glove box. Remember the prom dress? Bleach, I said, but no one ever asked who moved the bottle. He shook his head. It's always you cleaning up their mess. Not anymore. We drove in silence, the road stretching ahead like a lifeline. No music, just the hum of the engine and the occasional creak of the old car frame. Marcus kept his eyes forward, but I saw the tension in his jaw, the way his fingers flexed against the steering wheel. Your mom and dad, they're gonna flip, he said eventually. They'll survive, I replied. So will Calla. At the airport, the early morning crowd shuffled between terminals like ghosts. I clutched my boarding pass like armor. Every checkpoint I cleared felt like a door slamming shut behind me. One more chain broken, one more lie left behind. My hands trembled only once, when my phone lit up with a call from Mom. I watched the name flash across the screen before hitting decline. She didn't deserve my explanation. Neither did Dad, who had called my dreams unrealistic, or Calla, who'd taken everything from notebooks to confidence and called it sisterhood. I made it to my gate. Paris, France, my first time flying, my first time leaving the state, my first time choosing for myself. Marcus waited near security, watching until I disappeared from view. I looked back once, just once. His hand raised in a quiet wave. I nodded. Then I stepped onto the plane. As the engine roared to life and the ground peeled away beneath us, I felt it. That weight I'd carried for so long, finally lifting. Kentucky shrank below the clouds. The past drifted into silence. I wasn't running anymore. I was flying. Paris didn't welcome me with parades or trumpets. Just cold air, blinking signs in French, and the scent of roasted chestnuts wafting through the arrivals terminal. I gripped my passport so tightly my knuckles turned white. The one they never found. The one that held everything they tried to take from me. A woman with silver-streaked hair held a sign with my name. Celine Ward, European Youth Policy Forum. Her smile creased the corners of her eyes. I'm Renee, she said, extending her hand. Your mentor. Your essay was remarkable. Not dramatic, not difficult, not too much. Just remarkable. Something in me cracked open. The next few days passed in a blur. Orientation, icebreakers, strangers with stories that echoed pieces of mine, a girl from Lebanon who taught computer science to displaced children, a boy from Australia whose grandmother had fought for indigenous land rights. They talked about injustice and hope in the same breath. For once, I didn't feel like I had to shrink myself to belong. On the third day, we gathered in a grand hall lined with the flags of 30 nations. Sunlight streamed through tall windows as Renee took the podium. Each of you will speak briefly, she announced, about why you're here, what drives you to serve. My pulse jumped. I hadn't prepared for this. I had statistics about youth civic engagement scribbled in my notebook. Talking points, safe facts. But as the microphone passed from student to student, I knew I couldn't recite anything safe. When it reached me, I stood slowly. 60 pairs of eyes turned toward me. In my hometown, I began, they say a woman's highest calling is to serve her family. My voice wavered, then steadied. They don't tell you that sometimes family becomes the cage, that love can become chains, link by link, wrapped around your wings until you can't even remember how to fly. Silence. Even the flags seemed to pause their fluttering. I'm here, I continued, because service must start with seeing the humanity in ourselves, because we can't lift others if we're not allowed to stand tall, because the most dangerous people are often the ones who clip your wings, with a smile. A single clap broke the silence, then another, then a wave. Renee's eyes glistened. Miss Ward, she said quietly as she took the mic, I'd like you to consider speaking at the Strawberg Forum next month. That evening, my phone lit up with messages from home. Voicemails from Mom. Sweetheart, what will people think? This rebellion has gone far enough. Text from Kalia. Everyone's saying you abandoned the family. Pastor Don quoted you in his sermon about the prodigal child. I hovered over the block button. A knock on my door saved me from deciding. Emma, my doormate from Montreal, held 2 mugs of tea. Rough day? She didn't wait for an answer. Just set a mug down and curled into my desk chair like she belonged there. My mom always says tea fixes everything, she added. She's wrong about most things, but not that. I laughed for the first time in weeks. From there, things shifted. Our study group became a kind of makeshift family. We cooked dinner together, debated late into the night, traded jokes in half a dozen languages. Professor Laurent asked me to be his research assistant after I respectfully dismantled his theory on generational policy gaps. Renee never brought up my orientation speech again, but doors began opening, meetings arranged. My name made its way into rooms I never thought I'd enter. Until the night before Strawberg. It was almost 3 a.m. My dorm room glowed with lamplight as I revised the last paragraph of my speech. Outside, Paris slept beneath a sky of flickering stars. My phone buzzed. A new Instagram post from Kala. A throwback photo of the two of us. Her arm looped around my shoulder at a high school debate tournament. Caption: so proud of my amazing sister speaking tomorrow at the European Youth Forum. Proud sister, family first. My hands trembled as I turned the screen face down. Another notification. Mom's email. Subject line: your family will be there to support you. 3 exclamation points. 3 tiny knives. I didn't open it. A gentle knock pulled me from the spiral. Renee stood in the hallway, tablet in hand. They're coming, I whispered. She nodded. They won't get near the speaker prep rooms. We've arranged everything. They're not coming to watch me succeed, I said. No, she replied. But that's exactly what they're going to witness. The morning of the forum, I stood behind the curtain, heels planted, blazer sharp, notes steady in my hands. From the shadows, I saw them. Mom in pearls, Dad in his stiff church suit, Kala in lemon yellow, eyes scanning like a hunter. 5 minutes, Miss Ward, the stage manager whispered. I breathed deeply. Not for them, for me, for the girl who once stayed silent so others could speak louder, for every empty shelf where my awards should have been, for the suitcase hidden under my bed, and the Bible with a passport no one was meant to find. And then, I walked out. I didn't see their faces until I reached the podium. From the stage, the crowd blurred into shadow, except for the back row. My mother sat rigid, hands folded just right. My father's jaw was set tight, and Kala, in lemon yellow, watched me like a hawk in a courtroom. My name is Celine Ward, I said, gripping the mic. And I'm here to talk about voices never meant to be heard. Pause. Not because they weren't strong, but because someone made sure they never got the chance. I spoke of silence, of sabotage dressed as sisterhood, of protection that felt more like a cage. I pulled out my passport, letting the light catch the cover. This is my second passport, I said, because when you grow up watching your future go missing, you learn to make backups. You learn to hide your joy like contraband. You learn that sometimes the ones who love you most are the ones who clip your wings the quietest. Phones lifted, cameras flashed. In the back row, my mother's hand covered her mouth. Kala stared, motionless, but this wasn't for them. When I finished, the crowd stood. Applause. Not for my pain, but for my defiance, for surviving with my voice intact. Later that night, the internet lit up. Articles, quotes, clips from the live stream. My hometown paper called me a voice for the next generation. Kala posted a graduation photo. Proud of my sister, she wrote. Always knew she'd do great things. I blocked the notification. My parents left voicemail after voicemail. Mom's voice danced between guilt and concern. Dad sounded uncertain for the first time in my life. But I didn't answer. Instead, I focused on my work. Emma and I pitched a policy paper. Renee introduced me to leaders who treated me as an equal. Each meeting, each panel, each late-night study session brought me closer to something I'd never had, myself. Then, one afternoon, my inbox chimed. An invitation. Meadowbrook College wanted me to keynote their rural leadership forum. I laughed. Emma looked up from her laptop. Going? Yes, I said. Not for them. For me. That night, I replied, happy to speak. I'll be in town. Open to meeting, if you're ready to listen. No drama, no performance, just choice. A week later, Aunt Willa messaged, we'll be there, not for them, for you. And they were. I stood before a room full of teachers and church folks who'd known me since I was 10. I didn't name names. I didn't need to. I simply said, the hardest part isn't leaving. It's believing you have the right to stay gone. Afterward, as people filed out, I saw her. Kala. She didn't speak, just watched. And maybe, for the first time, understood I wasn't following her anymore. I turned and walked away. Toward Emma, who held out tea with a grin. Toward a future no one else could sabotage. 6 months have passed since that speech. My dorm wall in Paris is covered with conference badges and Polaroids, snapshots of the life I built, not the one I was given. The old Celine would have hung back in corners, double-checking exits, waiting for something to go wrong. This version walks through doors without flinching. The new passport sits on my desk. Not hidden, not hollowed into a book, or shoved beneath a floorboard, just there. Visible, owned. My phone still buzzes sometimes with messages from home. Some days, it's mom's carefully phrased guilt dressed up as concern. Other days, it's silence. I no longer flinch either way. I don't need them to approve of the woman I've become. Marcus just got accepted into the Paris exchange program. Emma and I are co-authoring a piece on educational equity that's being reviewed by an international journal. And I've been asked to return to Meadowbrook College to help design a youth civic engagement curriculum. That last invitation came with a short, polite message. We believe your voice could inspire students who feel unseen. I smiled when I read it, not bitter, just whole. They thought silence would make me obedient, that clipping my wings would make me safe. But all it did was teach me how to build better ones. Sometimes I wonder if Calla regrets it, what she stole, what she broke. But I don't dwell on it. I'm not here to carry her consequences. I'm here to carry my own life. This wasn't just about a passport. It was about reclaiming my narrative, piece by piece. It was about refusing to live as someone else's shadow. It was about standing in the light and not apologizing for how brightly I burned. They thought they locked the door behind me, but I found another. And when I stepped through, I didn't just escape. I arrived,